Hey guys, Pete here. This is going to be my Things You Might Have Missed video for Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 5, Eastwatch. It should go without saying, but if you haven't watched Episode 5 yet, this will definitely spoil it for you, so that's your spoiler warning. And as I said in the last one, a lot of these things are obvious, but it's fun to look back through the episode and just reminisce on the old callbacks and things like that, so that's what we're going to do. First off, I have to talk about Jon touching the dragon because in my Top Moments recap, I mentioned that it was weird that Jon just decided to touch the dragon. Now, what I didn't say there was that he was able to do so because he has Targaryen blood. At the time, I figured that's pretty much common knowledge, but then I got a lot of comments of people being like, how can you not know that and be a fan of Game of Thrones? It's like, well, yeah, of course I know that. I have videos from last year about whether Jon was going to ride a dragon and what dragon riders are and all that kind of stuff, but I realized, I didn't point it out, so it is important to point out. And there's something that we all have to keep in mind when we watch the show is that nothing is known in the show until it's known. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of things that they've kind of twisted a bit, and I won't go down that road right this minute. But the reason why Jon is able to touch the dragon is because, from what we can assume, that it senses his Targaryen blood. That ties into the fact of why the Targaryens married each other and why all this uproar about Jon and Dany getting together, even though they're related by blood, is kind of misplaced. There were a lot of Dragon Lord families in Old Valyria. The Targaryens were actually a minor one. They just happened to leave before the doom happened. So this bonding and ability to become dragon riders is not something that anybody can do, so that bloodline was very important for them. It doesn't mean that incest is okay and all that other stuff, but it does mean that there is some reasoning in their minds for it. Now, I did see a photo online in Kim Renfro's article on The Insider where they say that they see a wolf there. There's a nice close-up of it. It looks like the reflection could be, but I don't think it's conclusive. But that could be a nod to his half Targaryen, half Stark bloodline as well. The next thing you might have missed was one that I did show in the Top Moments recap, and that was that Gendry's hammer that he made has the Baratheon stag sigil on it, and it's pretty cool. You can't really see it when he's carrying it around, but when they sit it in the boat, if you zoom in, you can see that it's clearly there. So that is pretty awesome. Gendry's wardrobe, when he comes across him in King's Landing, could also be a little bit of favoring towards the Baratheon's house colors, which are yellow and black. The next thing you might have missed was the callback from Davos, where he talks about the last time I was here, you killed my son with wildfire. Of course, that's not very discreet. It's directly about the Battle of the Blackwater Bay, which I mentioned it might have been a problem. But what I think is funny here is that there's very little that you can say to shut Tyrion up, but this was that thing. Davos lost his son Mathos in that battle as a direct result of the wildfire that Tyrion used to destroy the Baratheon fleet. Davos was actually full of a ton of callbacks, and one in particular was just complete fan service, but was still awesome when he said, I thought maybe you might still be rowing. At that beach, we saw a gold cloak that may have looked familiar to you. The actor's name is Kevin Eldon, and he was in the 6th season playing Ned Stark in the Mummer show that Arya saw. So that's definitely good on a couple levels because it was a pretty shitty depiction of Ned Stark. I mean, Ned was a pretty honorable dude and handled himself pretty well, and this made him look like a buffoon. The next one is another one I didn't mention in the recap, but I'll go all the way into what the letter actually says. Now, we all saw that Arya found a scroll. It wasn't exactly clear on screen what it was because you just see a flash really quickly, and it's only part of it, but it is actually something that we know about. And what it says is, Sansa wrote it when she was at King's Landing, and the entirety of what it says is, Robb, I write to you with a heavy heart. Our good King Robert is dead, killed from wounds he took in a boar hunt. Father has been charged with treason. He conspired with Robert's brothers against my beloved Joffrey and tried to steal his throne. The Lannisters are treating me very well and provide me with every comfort. I beg you, come to King's Landing, swear fealty to King Joffrey, and prevent any strife between the great houses of Lannister and Stark. Now, obviously, Cersei put the words into her head and that she wrote down. She dictated the letter, I'm sure. And it's interesting to remember that whenever it arrived, Robb and Catelyn didn't believe that Cersei actually wrote it. They knew that this was done by Cersei on behalf of Joffrey, and Sansa was basically just a pawn in their little thing. Arya, on the other hand, the whole idea that Littlefinger has is that it's going to cast suspicion on Sansa, and Arya may not trust her, and that could be a place where he could drive a wedge. I would add, though, that she was there. Arya was there. She knows how things were going, so I'm not sure it'll be 100% effective. I wasn't expecting, until I realized what the letter said, I wasn't expecting that he was actually doing all of that as a show so that Arya would fall into his trap. So that was kind of interesting. There was a callback to Arthur Dayne in this episode. In the goodbye between Jon and Daenerys, he uses the phrase, "I wish you good fortune in the wars to come." And that's the same thing that Arthur Dayne said to Ned at the Tower of Joy. The next one is one that I didn't recognize. I read this one in Kim's article as well. When Sam's leaving the Citadel, he says to Gilly, "I'm tired of reading about the achievements of better men." Back in season 6, whenever we meet Randyll Tarly for the first time, when he goes there, Randyll had said to him, "I thought the Night's Watch would make you into a man," so on and so forth. And he goes into this rant about something resembling a man at least. You manage to stay soft and fat, your nose buried in books, spending your life reading about the achievements of better men. So, in the episode where Randyll gets fried and is no longer with us, Sam has a callback to his cruel old dad, and that's kind of cool when you think about it. This next one is one that probably nobody missed, and that's the fact that Daenerys called back her own speech about the wheel, but I think it's interesting to look at the two versions of what was said. In episode 5, as she's talking to the defeated Lannister soldiers, she says, "All I want to destroy is the wheel that has rolled over rich and poor to benefit of no one but the Cersei Lannisters of the world." She actually said this when she first meets Tyrion, and the way she says it back then is she lists off the names, and it goes like this. She says, Lannister, Baratheon, Stark, Tyrell, they're all just spokes on a wheel. This one's on top, and that one's on top, and on it spins, crushing those on the ground. I'm not going to stop the wheel, I'm going to break the wheel. So like I said, I don't think anybody missed that, but I think it's important that she still has that revolutionary spirit, if you want to call it that. A lot of people are quick to jump to this idea that she's going to become a mad queen, but I think that there's going to be a lot of different, and I pointed this out in the trailer breakdown that people kind of went nuts about. It's a different situation. I was trying to draw attention to the fact that it's a completely different situation. And Tyrion and Varys right now, they're worried because they're afraid that if she goes around burning people, which Randyll and Dickon made that choice, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that that was crazy for her to do it. I'm saying that these soldiers aren't going to be following her because of any other reason besides fear. So it's good to see her say that and know that, and we hope that she won't fall into those same mistakes that obviously her Mad King father made. But also, you know, things aren't that good for the average person in this world, even when there isn't a Mad King in there. Like, you think about the War of the Five Kings, the Lannisters were just destroying the countryside. They were killing people all over the place. So it's an interesting dynamic, and we'll see how it goes. I'm not really sure that it's going to play out to a full with all this business going on north of the wall, though. So we'll have to see how that goes, at least in the show. And the last one, the 10th thing that you might have missed in the last episode of Game of Thrones is obviously the big reveal that Gilly made but got overlooked. Now, this was kind of funny in that she said Prince Rhaegar. But what she says is that Septon who wrote the journal he had issued an annulment for Prince Rhaegar and remarried him to someone else at the same time in a secret ceremony in Dorne. So there's no doubt that the Tower of Joy is in Dorne, so there's no doubt that this is Lyanna Stark that they're talking about. Of course, there's no reason why that should stand out to Sam in the same way it does to us, and he's thinking about other things, so it all gets looked over. So what does that actually mean? Like, this started one of the biggest debates with a lot of the people that I, have been reading their theories and just people who know a lot about these books and this universe. I guess the show viewers won't really be affected that much, but in the context of things, what was always believed before this was that Rhaegar abducted, kidnapped Lyanna away after the incident at the tourney at Harrenhal where he named her the Queen of Love and Beauty. So this is stuff that people have been theorizing about because up until last season, we never knew for sure that Jon's parents, Rhaegar and Lyanna. I mean, that was the most popular theory, but there were other ones as well. And so when the show confirmed that made it a question of what Jon's legitimacy was. If Rhaegar and Lyanna weren't married, he'd still be a bastard. He would be a different bastard. Instead of being a Stark bastard, he would be a Targaryen bastard. Because he would just be someone that was born to highborn people who were outside of a marriage. So you have to imagine that when this happened, that's when Brandon Stark and Ned's father Rickard went to King's Landing and were burned alive by the Mad King. Like, all of this directly fed into Robert's rebellion. Before he married Cersei, before he was the king, he was betrothed to Lyanna Stark. And we've seen in the TV show that he did actually love her, or at least he loved the idea of her. Way back in the very first episode, he goes into the crypts and he's still burning a candle for her. So this incident, this annulment that they're talking about, makes Jon legitimate, but it also brings up the reality of the consequences of this action. Thousands of people died as a result of Rhaegar running away with Lyanna. Wars were fought. Dynasties ended. It was a big deal. So a lot of the anti-Rhaegar people came out and they were just really disappointed that this news turned out to be true because I guess people were like, oh, well, that means his parents were in love and they were married. But yeah, it still doesn't change what happened as a result of their pairing. And remember, this really is more of him trying to fulfill that prophecy. And I believe that his wife couldn't give him another child, so that's probably why he had to annul the wedding in the first place. So yeah, it's heavy stuff. We all like Jon Snow either way, but all that went into bringing him into the world is pretty friggin' heavy when you think about it. So yeah, there's some other things here that are interesting too, but this video's already gotten long. Let me know what your favorite callbacks or little details that popped up were. Which one of these did you get? Which ones did you not see? Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.